Hi, Eileen. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. PRG, you guys are obviously one of the bigger production companies out there, and I know that a lot of the productions around the world have kind of come to a bit of a halt, if not, I guess, almost everything. I mean, obviously, video is still being done and productions are still going on. So I wanted to touch base with you for a few minutes, about 10 to 15 minutes, just talk about what's going on at PRG, how you guys are dealing with the crisis and sort of responding. Um, we just had a little bit of a pre-call, and you mentioned a couple of things that you are doing to kind of help the current situation and help people get by. So maybe touch on what's going on with your Broadway Scenic Shop and also Berlin to kind of get started, and then we'll kind of dive into the next challenges for the industry.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we, as I mentioned, we're looking at how do we respond to the crisis. Both are there skill sets that we offer that can contribute to crisis response, which is where the Broadway Scenic Shop comes in and what they're doing, and manufacturing now face shields for the first responders, and we're working on the construction of a temporary hospital that will open in early May, next week, I believe, or the following, that will have 1,000, bed capacity for patients as needed. So there's those types of responses, and then there on to the business needs in the market. And that's really, I think, what it is. And it's interesting because in the live events environment, we are used to improvising every day. We are used to adapting to what the event environment throws at us. And so we're very much accustomed to this, but now we're doing it, obviously in response to COVID-19.
Right. So have you had a chance to, I know obviously a lot of productions are being done out of people's homes and what have you. So the studio environment is changing and evolving quickly. So have you gotten involved with some of those shows? I know there have been some big, the concerts that are going on and the comedy shows where people are involved. Have you been able to tap into that?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of live streaming, whether it be for, concerts that are, being live streamed and featured on YouTube or other platforms. We've also been doing a lot of live stream kits that are going into homes for whether it be, news media or public figures or, or companies that need to connect with their employees. So we've been doing that. We're doing some, we're looking at a conference right now, actually, where we're going to try to engage 40 different speakers across Europe and connect them with the conference that they were supposed to be in LA with that production studio. So we're looking at a lot of different things like that and working on a lot of different things like that in terms of bringing, connectivity in this time period where events have been shut down.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to watch like the first 2 weeks, a lot of the cameras were the people using their iPhones, whatever, but then all of a sudden, like the next week, it would say, oh, somebody sent them a kit, and it's interesting to see that evolution. And I guess you'll probably continue to see people. I think what's going to happen is people will realize that this may be another 2 or 3 months, maybe 4 months. So let's send out even better kits, because this is going to be more of a stable situation within people's homes. So
that's exactly right. And now we're on Zoom all day, every day, right? We're connecting remotely all day, every day. And so people are really starting to see that, hey, we're we need to get a little bit better at this. We need to get a little bit more professional looking. And so, we've been able to do, and really it runs the gamut. It's everybody from, as I said, celebrities to, business leaders to people that are just trying to connect and do it, with a better look and feel and sound.
Right. So obviously the biggest topic of discussion right now in the sports world is the possible, hopeful return of sports. Let's call it July, okay? But when we get there will definitely not be fans in the stands. We have empty arenas. So what's your sense as far as how you guys are looking to help the broadcasters kind of address that? Are there opportunities there without fans being around? How do they kind of make the place feel like it is not totally empty?
Absolutely, and that is something that we have been working on and brainstorming about, and figuring it out and finding ways that we feel like we can connect the fan to the live event experience. I mean, we're hungry for it. If you're a sports fan right now, you are dying for a little hockey or baseball or basketball, and we're anxiously awaiting football season. And it's tough. We're watching. I mean, I've watched I'm a Patriots fan personally. I've watched every Patriots Super Bowl in the last 4 weeks. I've been watching it. I'm ready for some live event experience, right? And I think everybody is feeling that same way. We're ready for some fresh content. So one of the things that we've been looking at is how do we take the empty arena environment or the empty stadium environment and turn it into something that, you know, we can connect fans with on the broadcast and really have it be a compelling and engaging broadcast. And probably the biggest thing we're looking at is mixed reality for that right now.
Right.
And putting together some concepts for mixed reality. So, I mean, I think we're looking at, you know, is it possible the digital fan base in the seats? You know, can we actually activate those sponsor logos, you know, the brands that support the arena? Can we actually bring those to life and activate those, you know, in the crowd space? Can we make it feel as though it's a live event environment? You know, nothing will replace it, but can we get it there? Can we make the broadcast even more compelling, I think, for the fan? And frankly, you know, it's for the fan, I think, and for the broadcast. And to, you know, to build that excitement towards coming back into the arenas when we eventually can. But I think it also actually helps with the flow of the game for the athletes. You know, it's tough. You take, you know, two NHL teams and you put them on the ice in a very quiet arena, and it feels a little like a scrimmage or maybe a high school hockey game.
Right.
Right. So, you know, how do we kind of just keep that gameplay up for them, that gameplay environment up for them, and keep it to be somewhat of a thriving environment? Nothing will replace the energy that a fan can bring in a Stanley Cup runoff.
Right.
But how do we try to bridge that gap? And those are some of the things we're looking at.
Yeah, we were talking about in the office about how, you know, game-winning home run for the World Series, and there's no fans in the stands. It's going to be a little strange.
It's going to be tough. It's
Yeah.
going to be tough. It's going to be strange, but we'll get through it. And I think that we're finding new ways to connect, and maybe this is one of them. Actually, you know, it's interesting when we look at projection mapping, which is obviously something, you know, we're doing in arenas today, and many are. You know, we can map the ice like we normally do, but you know, what else can we do in an empty arena that maybe an arena that's full of fans doesn't allow us to do? We can actually turn the lights down and maybe get some projection mapping into the seats,
Right.
you know, and in that crowd space to make it look like it's coming alive. So how do we, you know, blend those two, mixed reality and mapping together to really create something dynamic?
Yeah,
And
I mean, you can put score bugs over that area, you know, which you couldn't do before, right? So you can kind of move things.
That's exactly right. Interstitials and noise prompts and, you know, game action, and we can use it, like I said, for a number of different kind of, you know, purposes. It can be fan content. It certainly could be sponsor and brand activation. It could be team activation. What do the teams want to, you know, promote and say?
Right.
Thank you, first responder. You know, there's a lot of different ways that we can use that. So I think that that's a really, I think it's something that's going to be pretty compelling, and that we can do and really bring, you know, the sides together with what we are working through.
Sure. So how about the eSports area? Because I know that's still hopping and getting there. So what are you guys seeing in the eSports marketplace?
Well, you know, yeah, we're seeing obviously demand in eSports, and one of the things that my team is looking at actually also is the gamification for professional sports. How do we help those pro athletes, you know, connect with their fans right now,
Right.
you know, and sort of put together short remote esports tournaments, if you will, allowing the players to, you know, play the game and for us to capture it and live stream that content and have an esports, you know, a tournament essentially for them. And so, you know, we have a director of business development who, you know, is focused on esports every day of the year. And we, you know, on my team, we're working with him to figure out, okay, let's figure out how we pull that over into the big leagues and the teams.
Right. Does it seem to be a relatively natural transition? I mean, are people understand that?
Yeah, I think you see players getting engaged in esports already anyway. So
Right.
I think this is just, you know, another way, like let's say they open practice facilities for the NBA in certain markets, and you know, I've seen a lot of different reports, but some markets may allow them to start practicing. Well, maybe after practice, you know, the 4 players, I think it is, that are allowed, and of course nothing's final, I'm just reading the headlines like everybody else, but
Right.
the 4 players that are allowed to practice, maybe we put together a little tournament, you know, afterwards, and it can be an interaction with the fans. And, you know, we're out there, we're practicing, we're on the court again. How do we, you know, let's bring that excitement to the fan and start getting everybody ready to get back to our seasons. You know,
Right.
that would be the hope. That's really the brainstorming ideas that we're looking at. And again, I think the biggest piece is we as Americans, really want our sports back. We
Yep.
want that because it brings so much to us. It's, you know, if you're a sports fan, it's the games you love, but even if you're not, it's something that connects our communities together. And we need that right now. And that's kind of what a lot of our motivation has been, is looking at ways that we can do that.
Right, right. Well, it's fascinating to see how things are going to develop, because I think, you know, it's there's going to be a lot of new workflows, a lot of new ways to do things, like you've said, as far as taking advantage of some of these situations, and,
Yeah.
you know, trying to make a little bit of lemonade out of some lemons in terms of an empty arena. Maybe there's a way to drive some more revenue, incremental revenue with virtual signage and what have you. So
Absolutely. And if you think about all of the sponsors and brands that, you know, have large activation deals with the teams, you know, they're not activating their brand very well right now in these dark stadiums and arenas, right? So, and that's an issue for everybody. So how do we actually help, you know, change that dynamic? How do we activate the brand in a way that, you know, can be, you know, connected with on the broadcast, and, you know, and get out there to the community? So that's all part of it. And frankly, you know, you just mentioned, you know, turning lemons into lemonade. The same thing with the kind of the dark space, you know, activation, you know, I referenced. How do we take, I mean, for example, and I haven't been to a drive-in movie in however long, but let's take a stadium parking lot and turn it into a drive-in experience. It's social distancing. And, you know, there's a lot of different things we can do with that. You think about, you know, a stadium parking lot. I'm Boston based, so let's talk about Gillette, right? Let's talk about Gillette Stadium. How about, you know, bringing that community together, and, you know, and live streaming, you know, player, you know, experience, maybe, you know, game highlights, or even, it doesn't even have to be football related, but it could be community related. Live stream a concert. You know, let's bring all the Jeep drivers across New England together in the parking lot of Gillette Stadium. And have a 4x4 concert in the parking lot that's live streamed with social distancing. And those are things we can do. And, you know, one of the things that I think, there's a couple pieces of that puzzle. Maybe there's some revenue generation, but right now, I think it gives the teams an opportunity to bring some of their workforce back and have a purpose for them. You know, we could get into concessions. We could get into, you know, we have security. We have all those needs, again, if we're bringing people into our space. So potentially bringing some of our workforce back. And then also, again, connecting the community, getting people out, making them feel like they're part of something again, and finding to do it safely. And I think the drive-in concept, I personally love it. We're actually looking, in other markets, we're actually looking at drive-in commencements for graduations, you know, finding spaces where we can do drive-in commencements. So, you know, it's actually a cool concept, you know, and this is it's a terrible time. It's a terrible crisis for all of us, and for all of those, you know, that are going through the loss of work, and, you know, the impact, and obviously those that are sick. It's a terrible time, but all we can do right now is look at it and figure out, okay, how do we find our fortitude and our resilience in this time? And just, we are the event production and technology industry. How do we keep innovating? Because that's what we're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a new way to do it.
Sure. Well, thanks, Eileen, for your time. That was great. Sorry about Tom Brady. I mean, Gronkowski is the extra knife in that thing, but at least got a draft pick out of it for somehow. But
I have to say, I actually, you know, I'm a diehard Patriots fan, but I actually will probably go to Tampa a game or two.
He's gonna have a good offense. He's gonna have a good offense around him. So hopefully we're playing football. That's the important thing.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, be well. Thanks again for everything.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.